We are live. Live stream in progress. How's it going? Yeah. To all of our backers. Say hi.
Oh, wonderful. Hi, backers. I'll ping you when I'm done.
Okay. You can send me a text or a chat. Okay. All right. Okay, can you hear me? Somebody indicate whether you can hear me. So now I'm looking at the screen where I can see my live stream. It is successfully live streaming, but this time it's not giving me a comment area like I remember seeing last time. That's very interesting. Let's see here. Oh, okay. Okay. Got it. Now I've clicked on the correct place. Yes, you can hear. All right, Josh Harmon joined. Ian is on board. Behold, my glorious sign. All right, so you can see my screen and you can see my webcam. And all right. Here you see I've got Adobe Illustrator open. And what I'm going to do to start, our goal is going to be to create this. There we go. I'll hold that up to the webcam. This is the Meepleoid alien from Incoming Transmission. And I'm gonna jump right in. I know we don't have everybody here yet, but this is gonna be the process of taking it from a piece of an image, a piece of art, and turn it into the wooden meeple that you just saw. Although we're not going to paint it because painting takes it's going to take an hour to dry. Just trust me, I paint it eventually. Welcome to I3 Detroit Hackerspace in glorious Ferndale, Michigan. I am Nemo Rathwald. I'm the designer of Overworld. Here is Overworld, and I made Overworld right here in Ferndale. On this laser cutter that you see before you, this is called Bumblebee. Let me move the webcam over here. We have two of them. So this one is called Bumblebee, and then over there you see Wolverine And they're named after basically their color schemes. You can barely see in this webcam that they have two different color schemes, but take my word for it. Bumblebee is gray and yellow, and Wolverine is navy blue and yellow. So that's how they got the nicknames. And the bed of the laser cutter here. And this is where the magic happens. So this is a all-volunteer, not-for-profit workshop. And there's our former president, Charlie Rizenga, who you can see in the distance. Wave hi, Charlie. All right, so what we're going to do is take a piece of art and put it here as a laserable path. So let's start. To start, we will go down here and open up a image in Adobe Illustrator. So I do all of my vector work in Adobe Illustrator. And I'm going to open up sprite shapes. So this is this is a PNG, like, you know, the typical kind of bitmap image that you see in a web browser. Any kind of photo that you look at on the web, it'll be in a photograph like this. And Ian provided this to me. Ian Stedman, say hi, Ian. He provided this to me and said, okay, let's get a prototype of this, of these figures for the game. So I bring this into Adobe Illustrator, and now I can turn it into paths that are outlined along the edge of this. And the quickest and easiest way to do this is with the image trace in Adobe Illustrator. It saves you a lot of work. You're not quite done with this, but it does save you a lot of work. This is a pretty big image for the sake of accuracy. So here we have I click expand. And I like to go into what I call, you press Command Y, I call this reality mode. Now reality mode is about just toolpaths. Let me explain the distinction here. Let's say I was going to print this out on a piece of paper. Well, you know, that's just artwork. That's got a lot of different colors. It's got stroke thicknesses. It's got special effects. That's for printing on actual paper. But what we're going to do with our laser cutter today is have that laser beam as a tool, and that tool has to follow along a path cutting through a sheet of wood. So what you see in what I like to call reality mode when I press Control Y just then is just showing me what are those paths. So here we have connect the dots, and that's all that if somebody says vector art, that's what they're talking about. It's a connect the dots drawing program. So it took that photograph and actually converted it instantly into these dots that you see, where this right here is the path that the laser head is going to travel along, and as it travels along this path, its beam is going to fire downward into the wood and slice through it. So if I press Control Y again, we'll leave reality mode, we'll go back into decorative or looking nice pretty mode for printing on paper with ink. What we have here is a shape, which is, let me ungroup these. We have a bunch of shapes here. I'm going to ungroup them. So I just selected object. Let me move my webcam for a second so you can see this. So there's a bunch of menus at the top of the Macintosh screen. One of them says object. So you can't see it. It's cut off a bit there, but that's the object menu. And I just went to, there's group and ungroup. So I went to ungroup. So now that I ungrouped it, I actually have a bunch of separate objects. So here's an object, which is just the overall frame that was surrounding these, and I'm just going to press the delete key and just get rid of it. Like that's not anything that we need. So now we have this vector path and this vector path. Now these can have a fill in Adobe Illustrator, and they can have a stroke. Right now what you're seeing is a fill. The laser cutter doesn't know about this. The laser cutter doesn't care about this. All the laser cutter needs is basically the road that its laser beam is supposed to travel along. That's all it cares about. It doesn't care about what fills it. So let's go over here to the, you see here we have fill controls and stroke controls. We want to make this just a stroke along the path. I'll show you what that means if you're confused. If I click this, then I'm taking away the fill from the cadet. But then if I click this, see this thing right here? That's the stroke around the cadet. I'm going to move my webcam again. Whoops. Whoa, moved my entire screen. Let me move just my webcam. So I'm just going to move, oh, whoop. Still managing my streaming software here. There we go. Okay, so I'm just going to move my webcam so that I can show you what I'm doing over here. Here is where I adjust the colors on things. I can actually make the stroke on the cadet black. So this is our color palette, and I can make that stroke black, and that stroke black, and that stroke. I'm just going to give them a color. I can make them red. I could make them whatever. It doesn't really matter. The laser doesn't care because the laser is not printing red ink or blue ink or black ink or any of this. The laser is firing a laser beam to cut through the sheet of wood, which is all that we're concerning ourselves with today. So here the Meepleoid doesn't need a fill either. I'm going to turn off the fill. I'm just going to give it a stroke. I'm going to show you something as well. Let's say I'm going like that, that, that. Let's say if I hold down Shift, I select all these little holes in the middle of the Meepleoid, plus I select the Meepleoid's perimeter. I can do all that at one time. I can say it's not going to have any fill, and then the stroke, let's say I'm going to change to a different color mode other than black and white. Take the black all the way down to 0, and take the red all the way up to this. Now, I said that the laser cutter doesn't care about color, but here's the nice thing. The software that runs the laser cutter basically lets you group things in there by what color they were in Adobe Illustrator. If that doesn't make sense, hold on a minute, because I'm going to actually show you what that means. We just made this vector file in Adobe Illustrator. I'm going to save it by pressing Shift-Control-S. I could just press Control-S, but I'm going to choose Shift-Control-S to give me this control panel. And I'm going to say, yeah, itspriteshapes.ai looks like a pretty good name, so I'm just going to save it as an Adobe Illustrator file. Now, with this laser cutter, this is a GKYT laser cutter, and you can't use compression. See the setting right here? If you ever come to I3 Detroit, come down to Ferndale. I know a lot of people watching or listening are here in Michigan. Come on out. You can use our laser cutter. Make an Adobe Illustrator file, and when you save it, click that button. You've got to turn off Use Compression, because if you save it with compression on, the laser cutter software crashes. So that's an important step of this. Okay, now, you can save it in all kinds of Adobe Illustrator versions. If you're going to do laser cutting, save it as Adobe Illustrator CS5. So save it as CS5 with compression off. And it's like, oh no, you're saving it in an old format. Doesn't matter, because the laser cutter software we're going to be using here needs that old format. So that's actually a good thing. So now, I'm going to go to my my Finder in Mac, and I'm going to give myself a new one, a new Finder, and I'm going to go to our, let's see, where's the file share? I3 Detroit file share. Here we go. I3 file share. This is because I'm on the Wi-Fi here at the Hackerspace. We have our server, and I can just connect to the file share, so I can take my files from one computer to another very easily just over our Wi-Fi. Whenever I'm connected to the Wi-Fi, I can just go to this folder that I have on our file share, and I can go to, let's make a new folder in here for incoming transmission. I've got a lot of board games in here I've been making, and a lot of different projects that you see here from many years that are all just, I never bothered to delete them off the server. The server is enormous. Oh, let's see. So in Mac, how do I make an, I normally would click off where I'm not clicking on any of these things, and I'd say new folder. But how do I do that? Oh, here we go, new folder. Okay, so let's call that incoming transmission. Oh, it's already taken. I already made one. All right, well, never mind then. So I could just go to the incoming transmission folder. Okay, so now I'm going to drag. Here's all these files from when I've done this in the past, but I want to demonstrate this to you right now. itspriteshapes.ai, drag it in there. Okay, so now that I've done that, check out the webcam. I'm going to actually just, let's see if I can make this webcam larger. There we go. Okay, so here's the laser cutting computer. Here's the laser cutter software. It's called Laser Cut 5.3. It is, well, you know, it's better than our previous laser cutter software, but oh my goodness, like it's. Let's just don't get your hopes up, is what I'm saying. You got to do all your art in Adobe Illustrator, or let's say open source, free and open source Inkscape, or even a 3D CAD/CAM program would be better than this. It's not great for actually making art. It's just you load the art in here, and then it basically operates the laser cutter from within here. And I'll show you about that. So if I go to our file share that I just loaded my files into, and then I go to incoming transmission, here's our IT sprite shapes file. Okay, so I know that's there. So I'm going to say in laser cut, I'm going to say import. And somebody else has been working on this. That's fine. It's as it should be. So I'm going to navigate from their folder over into mine in the file share computer. Here we go. Incoming transmission and load. See, here's the IT sprite shapes. It's got a little bit of a weird thing going on here. I'm not sure what that's all about. Let's try it. So I just imported that. Wow, okay, so somehow this, I haven't seen this happen very often, but occasionally you get these weird compression algorithms that do something very strange. So let me see if I can do this. All right, so notice that this is red and this is black. Remember how I had Adobe Illustrator open and I said color doesn't matter? Well, it only matters to put stuff onto different layers. So let's say if I wanted to do an engraving on one of these, but I wanted to do a cut on another, maybe I'd need different layers. And so by making them different colors in Adobe Illustrator, I can sort them and group them so that they come in those groups automatically. But I'm going to say, let's just throw away this, go back to Adobe Illustrator and get rid of that little weird jaggy thing that it was doing. All right, so here we go. This is the shape in question that was having some kind of a weird issue. I'm going to go into reality mode with Control Y, like I talked about before. All right, what is your unmet need, little buddy? I think you just have too many of these anchor points for no reason. I'm just going to clean those up. What is this? Oh, that's just a loose dot. It's just sort of hanging out there. Okay, so I got rid of the loose dot. I have a plugin called Vector First Aid. I'm going to use that real quick. It's very convenient. So I'll go to Vector First Aid. This is a plugin from a company called Astute Graphics. It's really great. Oh, Vector First Aid, check the document, 79 unneeded points, 51 inconsistent point types, fix all. So the bottom line of what I just did is that you don't need to know what that meant or care about it because Vector First Aid takes care of it these days. I feel like I want to. I've been doing this since 1996, and I feel like I want to say that I used to have to walk uphill and downhill in the snow both ways before Vector First Aid came along. I used to have to care about things like that. So I'm going to say save. Just to be on the safe side, I'm going to go through this whole process again. I know we've got some new people. I'm just going to replace that. This is the crucial thing where it's got to be an Illustrator CS5 and you got to turn off compression or the whole thing's going to crash. Okay, so there we go. And now I'm going to put that back in here and overwrite that file with the new file. To make sure that I don't get all confused, I'm just going to delete all of the ones that have that name. To make sure I've gotten rid of the old one. Transmission, there we go. Checking the chat on Facebook, no questions. Okay. So now, let's go back to... Alright, so going back to here, we're going to try this again. Now I'm going to import. See, there's open and there's import. You have to import an Adobe Illustrator file, not open. And it crashes. Try that again. Import. Crashes. Alright. What did I do wrong? Review my work. Saved it as CS5, I could have sworn, with compression off, because that's usually what does that. Alright. So, turn off reality mode. I'm just going to make everything as ungrouped as possible. This is my usual troubleshooting. Release, oh, there were some compound paths. Never mind what that means. I just like to uncompound all the compound paths, ungroup all the grouped things, check for effects. Turn off, yeah, doesn't look like there's any special effects applied. Let's make everything an even 1 point stroke on all the paths. Save. Save as, let me say, oh, you know what? I'll bet it's the fact that it has an underscore in the name, and I wouldn't be surprised. I'm going to save it without the underscore in the name. So LaserCut 5.3 is this piece of software from China where this laser cutter was made. And it has these hilarious error messages that are really not helpful unless you've had years of experience where people finally figured out what it meant. Like, soft dog, no same. Soft dog, no same would be if I tried to load the laser cutter software, but I didn't turn on the laser cutter. Because it has this a USB key dongle. It's actually a copy protection. And what they mean is, by soft dog, they mean the software dongle is wrong that they need for copy protection. So they would say soft dog, no same. Right now we actually took that dongle and we actually welded it to the interior here, so none of our fellow members is going to walk off with it one day and we have no idea why or what happened. So we just welded it in place. That will never happen again. All right, so I'm going to go to back over here. Oh, right. We need to hold on a second. I need to actually transfer that back onto the file share again. Right. And here, and drag this over into incoming transmission. All right. And having done that, it's on the file share. Let's try this again. All right, so I'm going over here to open up the LaserCut 5.3. And I'm going to import IT sprite shapes. Still crashes. All right, so let's simplify this. This is cool because you actually get to see one of those rare times that the software does not seem to be working as normal. This actually is, you know, I've had a variety of weird issues over the years, but usually not that particular one. Okay. I'm going to just delete the cadet. Here we go. Let's just concern ourselves with the meeple, the meepleoid. Oh, you know what? There's duplicate shapes here. Check that out. Let me undo, show you that again. I think I found the problem. Okay, so there are two shapes, an interior and an exterior. Because what was going on there was, oh, I figured it out. Okay, so here's what was going on. Here's the actual, one of the shapes was like this, like so. And then there were also shapes that were like this. See what I mean? That's the problem. So I've got to get rid of this, and this, and this. And now this is just the interior surface of the meepleoid, rather than having these basically 3 blocks floating in there. This is an exterior surface and an interior surface, if that makes sense. Is that out? Okay, so I was getting some duplicated lines. That's the problem. I'm going to remove all the fill because we don't need that. And save it again. Save as. IT sprite shapes. .ai. Illustrator CS5. Turn off use compression. And drag the correct. You know what? I'm going to do this thing again just to be safe. I'm going to delete all the existing ones so I don't accidentally click them, because I know they crashed the program. Those are confirmed gone. So now I can drag this in here. And there we go. All right. So this. Oh, by the way, you like this? This is some of the stuff that's been made with the with the laser over the years. And another cool thing, this webcam is actually. Hold on, I'm going to spin. Close your eyes if you get dizzy. Close your eyes. I'm going to spin to unwrap this USB cable. Okay, so this is a bunch of stuff that's been made on the laser cutter over the years, but this USB cable has me a bit tethered here. That big sheet you see there with a bunch of holes in it is actually a dinosaur that was punched out and assembled with tab and slot assembly, a big T-Rex. And okay, check this out. Couple of laser cut lanterns here. Those are actually laser cut with rice paper and wood on this laser cutter right here. Okay, so where were we? I'm going to import this. All right, cross your fingers, folks. I'm going to try it again this time. There we go. Yeah, check that out. All right, so that's fine. So here we are. We are in laser cut, and I can use my scroll wheel to zoom out and zoom in. Now, this represents the laser bed, but I don't want to have to cut in the middle of the bed on the laser. So I don't want it to have to be right here. So I'm going to make sure immediate mode is checked. As long as I've got immediate mode checked, then wherever I position the laser cutter head, that's where it's going to start cutting. Let me explain some concepts here. Here we have the laser cutter. Excuse me. I'm going to move this away. And in the laser cutter, you have the actual laser cutter bed. And okay, there we go. Yeah, so this actually will rise up and down to get in focus, and it'll have the beam travel around, slicing through the sheet of wood on here. So that's 3 feet by 4 feet as a GK Waikiki 150 watt laser cutter. I did a fundraiser actually to get this for the space. This was several years ago, and we said, well, one member brought in their own laser cutter, and then everybody fell in love with that machine, but then that member quit, and they left, and we didn't have a laser cutter. So I ran a fundraiser, and we raised $6,000 to buy this, and there was another member whose job was to go and do all of the shopping in China. So when we finally had this laser cutter show up, we had a bulk deal with Sector 67 in Madison, Wisconsin, which is a hackerspace out in Madison, Wisconsin, that they were going to buy one too. So we got a bulk deal, and we were really happy about it. But then when this showed up, there was that one. So we actually had two of them, and we said, did we get Sector 67's laser cutter? And the guy who did the shopping after I ran the fundraiser and he did the shopping, is like, no, I just did matching funds. So he did matching funds, and that literally just belongs to him, straight out. And he just says we can use it. So basically, we got a 2-for-1 deal, and that's why the price was so low. So he's a really good shopper. Anyway, this is what we call the gantry. Now the gantry will move back and forth like this. And this is called the carriage. So this carriage will move this way and this way, the gantry will move this way and this way, and right there is where the magic happens. That's the laser beam, and the laser will fire straight down. What it does is that there's a huge bulb back here. It's about this big, and we just got it replaced. It actually was stuck in customs for like 2 months. And the bulb fires the laser beam down here, and then it bounces off a mirror there to go here, and then it bounces off a mirror to go here. And then it bounces off this mirror. So it's actually going through the air right here. It bounces off this mirror, and it goes straight down. I'll show you a little bit more up close. So there you go. So it bounces off of this mirror and goes straight down. There's a lens right in here. This is really tough to operate this camera while I'm actually looking at the screen in the opposite direction. But anyway, the lens will turn it into a cone. So the beam passes through that lens. Tell me if I'm just making everybody dizzy. So the beam will pass through that lens, and then it hits the lens and it goes in a cone. Now the beam of light will cross each other like this. So at the point where it crosses, that's where it's at its most powerful. And so that's why you have to actually put it into focus. And if it's too high or too low of a bed, then it's matching the wrong point of this beam. So it's actually up here where it's too wide, or down here where it's too wide. It's got to be at the narrow point where the light is focused at its most intense. So here you have the ability to make can you see that? The bed is actually going down. And you can make it go up. So the idea is you've got to adjust that. I'm going to get a piece of wood. Hold on, I'll be right back. Okay, so I've got a piece of wood. This is actually what I've cut. I've cut the cadet out of this before. And you can see the cadet right there in the Meepleoid. And we have a piece of wood right here. You can see I've cut a bunch of overworld pieces out of this through the years. This was out of focus. When I say it's out of focus, I mean it didn't quite go through. So you see the opposite side? It did not quite cut through enough to release from the material. So the focus level is pretty important. Just cut some Meepleoids out of here at one point in various sizes. Let's say let's cut out of this section right here. All right, gonna checking on the Facebook chat. All right, I see comments from Ian. I see hello to Matt, Charlotte, Julie, Michelle, Janet Bartlett Arnold. That's my favorite Janet Bartlett Arnold. Hi, Mom. And then there's Amy, and Joe, and Josh. All right. Hey, anybody who needs for me to back up and cover something again, please send a chat, and I will be happy to do that. So, okay, so we covered the idea of what this is doing. It's going to actually move around this path, and it's going to cut the beam through the sheet of material. I'm going to do this. Here we have the laser cutter software. Let me zoom in here. You see, this is this right here. Okay, so here's the settings. You can actually cut or you can engrave. I'm going to choose cut, and then I double-click this. Because I double-click this, I get this. You can change the speed and you can change the power. I'm going to say, if you go down to like 12 speed, you're probably going to light the wood on fire. So this is from 0 to, let's say, 400 speed. Usually 20 is fine. Here's power. All the way to 100 will give us kind of a charred edge to our wood. Let's just go ahead and be a little bit more cleanly. Let's say I want just 80%. Now, corner power is interesting. So here's corner power. I don't know. In a piece like this, I wouldn't be too concerned. But what corner power is that this gantry with all of its belts will actually cause the laser tool to zoom along a path, and then it hits a corner, and it has to slow down into that corner so that it can make a really sharp turn. If this was a really big piece, I would be concerned about this, because then it's got to accelerate back out of that corner. It leaves a scorch mark. But, you know, right now this is such a small little piece that we're cutting out of wood that it's probably not even going to reach those speed differences anyway. I'm not concerned enough to actually give it a corner power. You just give it a little light corner power if you're worried, and that way it won't leave a scorch mark at the corners. So I'll click OK. And go back up here. So here's our settings, speed and power. And now I'm going to go to download. All right, so with download, now I've got this. Here's the stuff. Somebody was using this earlier today. They cut this thing peninsul.mol. I'm just going to delete that. That's the etiquette of the space. If you leave a file in the laser cutter, somebody can delete it, and that's fine. That's the etiquette around our hackerspace. Oh, I want to save my file, so I'm actually going to go. Sorry about the angle. Hope I'm not making anybody sick. Please do comment if it's just too handheld here. Okay, so I'm going to say save. I'm going to save it as meepleoid.ecp. All right, so now if I click download, I'm going to click download. I'm going to go over here and say download current. Here you go. So now you see it says meepleoid.mol. What that means is that it just loaded that into the laser cutter machine. So I'm going to put this here again. Show you how we operate the machine itself. There's this, my fellow members of the hackerspace built this cool panel over here. What that is, you can kind of see it. The light level is bad, so there's kind of a glare. But right here, you have lights that say the chiller is turned on, the air compressor is turned on, there is an exhaust fan that's turned on. Exhaust fan gate is red. I don't know if you can see that. Instead of a nice blue, it's red, meaning the exhaust fan gate is closed. So I'm going to go open it. That indicator panel is all homemade here. Very proud of it. All right, I opened the gate, so now the air is able to flow out of the exhaust, out of the laser cutter. It was actually, the door was slid shut. Okay, so I'm going to position this wood under the laser like this. You can kind of see there's a laser pointer. So this laser pointer is not an actual laser cutting beam, it's just your typical classroom laser pointer dot. And that is coming out of this right here. So it's a little laser pointer right here that will indicate exactly where that laser head is going to fire. So here we have a focusing device. It's a focusing device for this laser named Bumblebee. Here we go. For a 63.5 millimeter lens. Now what you do with this tool is you position it right here. And this has to touch this and be on this knob. So that's what I'm doing. I'm going to set this down here so that I have some hands free so I can do this. Okay, so this, I'm going to actually raise the bed of the laser. Okay. So now this touches the wood, and this touches the top of that laser cutter right there, that laser cutter head right there. So that way, it's lifted the bed up so that this surface of this wood is right perfectly in focus. And we just use this as a little cheat sheet. So as soon as this touches the wood, and then this is hooked onto the laser, and it goes like that, then the focus is correct. Then we have another one, which is actually engraved with the word Wolverine on it, and that's for use on the laser over there, which is a different lens, so it actually needs a different distance. I'm going to check on Facebook feed again. All right. No questions? Moving on. So if I close this lid, as soon as I close the lid, I've made contact, I've made an electrical contact right here. So there's an electrical contact right here and an electrical contact right here. And when they come together, the beam is able to fire, but as long as they're not touching, the laser beam can't fire. That's a safety measure. So it's right there. You can see the laser beam. I'm going to press the laser button. See that flash? So when I press a button that's marked laser, what that does is just instantly fire the laser in a little blink. Just a blink fire. What that did was it proved that the mark that it just burned is right on top of that laser pointer dot. So that was for the purpose of proving that I've actually got the laser pointer dot accurate to where the laser will actually fire. So there's another button here called Test, and the test is going to show me the complete perimeter of my Meepleoid figure. That's enormous, so that's definitely a mistake. I don't want a Meeple. That would make a Meepleoid that's like this big. We don't want that for our game. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm just going to select this and delete it from the laser. I'm going to grab this and use the scale tool, which is right here, and put in a different number of millimeters. Let's say 30 millimeters instead of 84. And now click that. So that shrank it down. Probably good. Let's try. Download current. Okay. So it's smaller. Let's reload it here. All right. So now if I press test, oh, that's more like it. So I see the laser pointer stayed on the piece of wood the whole time. So now I know if I cut this job, it's not going to wander off, because that thing was like, it was going to be like this big. So I will close the lid. You guys ready for the magic to happen? All right, I'm going to press start. But, oh, before I do, let me actually give you a nice close look to what's about to happen. There you go. It's lasering. All right. So I open the lid, and I pull out this piece. Let's see. Not bad. Can I cause it to pop out? I'm going to see if I can get it to pop out here. So here we've got, that's where the laser went in. And then on the reverse, this is actually the bottom of it, right there. Yep, that's fine. It pops right free. So we've got these little bits. Yep, they come out too. Pull that out like this. And then try to push that one out. There it goes. There you go. There you go. You have watched a Meeple being born. It's a pretty big one. I can make smaller size Meeples. But this is a 1/4 inch thick. One of the things to show you is this edge. What I just cut through was a solid sheet of birch. I did not use plywood. It's actually really important. Now, plywood, like, yeah, you can laser cut it. I wouldn't recommend it for laser cutting Meeples, because plywood has all these plies of wood that are all glued together. Plywood has an enormous amount of glue. So with all of that glue in those layers, the laser will fire through all of that glue and actually get obstructed. You have to have a much higher power level and slower speed to burn through all that glue if you're going to cut a piece of plywood. What it'll do is turn into resin. The glue, as it burns, will create a resin coating along this dark edge here if you were using plywood. It's really tough to get paint to stick to it. So I use a piece of solid birch, or sometimes I'll use solid pine, or maple. Like maple if it's just want to use some expensive wood. That way it'll hold paint much better when I actually end up spray painting this. And the best paint to use, spray paint or with an airbrush, the best paint to use on a Meeple is actually model car paint, enamel. All right. So that's the very high level overview. I know every time I show people this process, they're like, what just happened? That went by so fast, like I didn't really have a lot of time to pause or digest. This really was just kind of a high-level overview, and I hoped that you would find it to be just a fun way to explore how a prototype gets made for the Meeples that you enjoy. I'm going to show you now. Here's the one that I made like 3 or 4 of them, and I sent these to the publisher, and I sent this to the designer of Incoming Transmission, Michael Lipton. This is what we actually, like, I made a whole bunch of them at different sizes. I ended up sending them this one and like one a slightly different size. So we can compare, contrast, figure out the pros and cons, figure out how much it weighs for shipping. These are the kind of facts that you get when you actually go ahead and make a nice laser cut prototype. And I'll also show you the final designs that if you backed Overworld, or if you've recently bought my board game that I designed called Overworld, these are the actual production meeples that ended up being created in China. And it was nice because it was possible, with your help, with all of the backing of the project that you did, to actually make it affordable to laser cut these in mass production. So I felt really happy to have spent all this time laser cutting prototypes for these. For the longest time, whenever I make meeples, I will make some that will have sharp pixel edges, but then I'll also make some that have very smooth, rounded corners, because that's what milling will create, especially in the interior. Look at that interior. Only a laser could cut that with sharp corners like this. Because if you have a mill, then the mill bit, that basically is a drill bit, it drills down into there, and, like, it's round. Drill bits are cylindrical. They're round. And because they're cylindrical, it would actually leave a rounded interior corner there, as it would have milled this out. And it didn't, because it used a laser beam, which was incredibly thin, and so thin that you can actually create a sharp corner. That is thanks to you and the pledge levels that you provided that made that possible in Overworld. So every time that you increase your pledge, you can truly make some pretty amazing and awesome things happen. This is why I'm glad to be able to do many different prototypes here on the laser cutter very quickly, so that we can compare and contrast and figure out the pros and cons of all the various different manufacturing methods that we could do. Are there any questions before we close off? Let's see here. Well, I want to just give a word to our hosts, i3 Detroit Hackerspace, before we close up. This is an all-volunteer, not-for-profit 501c3 institution that I have been very proud to help to run for about 6 or 7 years. As a member of the board of directors, I used to be the custodian of this zone, which is the laser cutting zone. Now I'm custodian of the classroom zone. And it's just such an exciting all-volunteer community to be part of. If it were not for this group of friends, really at this point it's 160 people, but the camaraderie is truly like a little community of people who care for each other and treat each other well. There are no employees here. There are no customers here. There's really not a lot of money changing hands other than the minimum dues necessary to keep the lights on. And yet, despite so little money changing hands and really wanting to make this not-for-profit for the community, we've had so much success that we just signed the lease on the space on the opposite side of this wall to double our floor plan. There's CNC zone, there's a welding zone, there's a 3D printing zone, there's a wood shop, which you've been able to see in the distance back here. It's an amazing resource that I just want to give a shout out for, about how grateful I am that a place like this exists, because a group of friends met in a coffee shop and said, let's just take all the tools from our garage and put them into an old former tool and die shop that was sitting abandoned, and rent it. And because of that, Overworld exists today. And I'm able to create all of these prototypes very quickly, to make photos to show you, the Kickstarter backers, and offer you all these options that you get to choose from, and really see photos and see it held in somebody's hand. So if you have any comments, thoughts, as we conclude, questions, shouts of outrage, you can send those shouts of outrage to Nemo Rathwold at magicmeeplegames.com. I'm happy to hear them, but I also do like requests suggestions, feedback, ideas, other additional things that you want to know, because what I'm standing in right now is an institution of education with a 501c3 not-for-profit mission. And as part of the benevolence of all these people here who let this live stream happen and let this laser cutter happen, I feel it is part of my duty to answer any and all questions that you could possibly have. So if you want to visit, come by. I will teach you how to use the laser cutter for free. It takes about an hour, and we would get you authorized on it, because you, as some person walking in, are part of the community and therefore have as much right to use this as anybody. All right, so it's Nemo Rathwald signing off. It has been a lot of fun, and I definitely want to do something like this again. And I'll talk to you soon, okay? Thanks.